It's Vortex!
We're from Muskrat Academia, and today we'll be working on clauses. What is a clause? Well, it's a group of words with a subject and main verb. Specifically, there are two types of clauses, independent or main clauses and dependent or subordinate clauses. The only difference between the two of them is that independent clauses can stand by themselves because they have meaning, while subordinate clauses or dependent clauses cannot stand by themselves and they have no meaning, much like life. Independent clause. It's a group of words with a subject, main verb, and meaning. So here are some examples.
Blue.
All right, fine, we'll do blue.
I want red, actually.
We're sticking with blue. I Googled. First of all, are there any prepositional phrases in this sentence? No. But there is a subject and a verb. Googled is our verb, and I is our subject. Do we have meaning, Vortex?
Yes. No?
Yes, we have meaning. What are you doing? Googling. Who's doing the Googling? I am. We have a full
I'm
independent
Googling.
clause. What confuses me... Oh, would you like to read this one, Vortex?
Yes, thank you very much, lady.
Miss Dell.
Yes, lady.
What confuses me is when something I need ceases to exist. All right, do we see any prepositional phrases?
No.
We see a to here, but this actually isn't a prepositional phrase. It's an infinitive, so we're just going to bracket that.
What is an infinitive?
It's when we have a verb phrase that is just to and then the verb. So to exist, to run, to hate, to loathe, to continue on through this lesson so we get finished through this PowerPoint.
So anything that anything that will never end, kind of, in a sentence? In a meaning of a word?
Well, it can't stand by itself. You always have the infinitives in a sentence. You always have an infinitive with something else around it when you're speaking or when you have it in a sentence. You can't just say to exist and then be done with it unless you're, you can't have it by itself. It has to be around other things. You can have Googled by itself, though. That's a full independent clause. What you should notice on this page is our independent clauses are just sentences. They're simple sentences. Actually, something to note is what confuses me is when something I need ceases to exist. So what confuses me is actually a subject there. It's a little bit difficult. Is our verb, and then when something I need ceases to exist. So we actually have another verb here, need and ceases, and I. So this here is actually another dependent clause within an independent clause, which is kind of cool. So we actually have independent clause here, and then dependent clause, except this dependent clause is how big this is, and that's a little confusing, so just know that this is an independent clause right there. My mother fed me snake.
Oof.
Subject.
Mother.
Verb.
Fed.
Good answer. Independent clause.
Wait. So, was the snake alive or dead?
Well, I guess. Oh, we should probably just assume. I don't know for sure, but we should just assume that it was alive.
Wait, what? It was
so dependent clauses. A dependent or subordinate clause is a group of words with a subject and main verb, but no meaning. For example, while Sally Googled. What's our subject, Vortex?
Google Sally.
We'll go with Sally. And our verb?
Googled?
Googled is correct. While Sally Googled. We know Sally, and we know that Sally is Googling, but while Sally Googled, something else was happening. And we're not told what that is. So this subject, false sentence actually isn't a sentence because it doesn't have meaning. It's just a dependent clause.
Could she be Googling ancient welfare?
She's actually probably Googling more fun instructional grammar videos.
Wow.
Until it ceased to exist. So we have to exist here, which is in our infinitive, and it is our subject, and ceased is our verb. Until it ceased to exist. Well, we have subject verb, but we do not have meaning because something was going up to the point something ceased to exist. Thus, this is a dependent clause. Would you like to read the next one, Vortex?
Sure. Because the internet failed, we all died in the end.
Right. But we don't have this we all died in the end, so We're wondering what happened because of the internet failing. So we're just left wondering that, and it's actually a dependent clause instead of an independent one.
It was cold for millions of years. The TV broke in half. It's endless possibilities what happened under. I really don't know.
I know you don't. Saddening. So we can combine independent and dependent clauses to make sentences. Now, an independent clause by itself, as mentioned before, is a sentence. It's a simple sentence. However, you can have independent and dependent clauses together to create complex sentences. You could also have independent and independent clauses together to have a compound sentence, or independent and an independent and then a dependent clause clause to create compound complex sentences. Now, these I's and D's can be in whatever order you want. You can have I plus D, D plus I, it's still going to be complex. You could have I-I-D, D-I-I, or I-D-I, or even I-I-I-D, and it's still going to be compound complex.
Because it doesn't matter how many I's you have. But does it matter how many D's you have?
No, it doesn't matter how many D's either. Basically, if you only have one independent clause, it's going to be simple. If you have more than one independent clause and no dependent clauses, it's complex. If you have more than one independent clause and at least one dependent clause, it's compound complex.
Oof.
And if you just have one independent clause and at least one dependent clause, it's complex. This is all a little complex, but we're compounding this information so you all get it in one video. So we hope that with a couple examples, it'll become a little clearer. So here's some simple sentences. Scout was the cutest pumpkin ever. Do we have any prepositional phrases, Vortex?
Yes.
No. Good
No.
job. So Scout was is our verb. Scout is our subject. Scout was the cutest pumpkin ever. That is our simple sentence. The mucus-coated gray mush of Jethro's brain slid down his throat. What is our subject?
I am guessing that guy's name, or Mush.
Actually, I apologize. We should start with prepositional phrases because that helps us because our subject is never in the prepositional phrase. And look at that right there. You know that our subject is not going to be brain and it's not going to be throat because those prepositional phrases are out. This is noun of the preposition, noun of the preposition.
Mush colored.
Mush is our subject. That is correct. And slid is our verb because that's, like the only verb there. Gray is an adjective describing mush, as is mucus coated, and technically the as well, but we don't always say that as an adjective. All right, so we have mush, slid. That's our sentence. Then we put in all this fluff to make it sound really nice and pretty and wonderful. I love rainbows. I is our subject, love is our verb. What do you love? You love rainbows. But
I love cats. No, actually, I love dogs more than cats.
Did you dog lovers, they don't own dogs when you ask them. They own puppies. Dog lovers don't own dogs. They own puppies.
Really?
Yes. Go ask a dog lover. They go, oh, you should see my puppy. He's 10. Like 10 years old. No joke. Yeah. That being said, I'm a dog lover too. My mother eats fries, but I am not allowed any brownies. So let's remember, compound sentences are at least one independent clause. So my mother, let's look for prepositional phrases. My mother eats fries, but I'm not allowed any brownies. Nope. Let's go for our verbs. Eats is our verb. What's another verb, Vortex?
Allowed?
Yes, am is also a verb. So am allowed. Not is working as an adjective, an adverb here. And it's telling you you're not allowed. Our subjects are mother and I. All right. And now let's look for whether this is independent or dependent and how this is all put together. My mother eats fries. Well, that's going to be independent. That can stand by itself, and we're going to hint when we see this comma and then a conjunction.
Conjunction, what's your function? Link down in the descriptions below.
Schoolhouse Rock Rocks. All right, comma, conjunction. So we know independent, I'm not allowed any brownies. That can stand by itself, so we have independent plus independent. To save the earth, we need to not destroy it, and this seems difficult. So to save is our infinitive phrase there. We need to not destroy it. To not destroy is another infinitive phrase, except this not, again, is working as an adverb. It's functioning as an adverb. It's just kind of put in the infinitive. To not destroy it. The earth, and this seems difficult. Oh, comma, conjunction. Conjunction, what's your function? Okay, the earth, we need. We is our subject because need is our verb. Who is doing the needing? We are doing the needing. We're very needy. This seems difficult. Seems is another verb. What seems? This seems. Yes, Vortex.
Okay. Does all this knowledge for people who work in the English department of the universe, does this knowledge just sometimes drive you crazy when you're making a simple sentence or compound
These
sentence?
are actually compound sentences, remember? Because we have independent plus independent.
Just with any sentence you're making or typing something, doesn't it drive you crazy with all the stuff then after a while?
I don't know. I have heard some people ask if eventually, if you start to have knowledge leaking out of your brains, and I don't know. I've never really met a teacher who's had that knowledge leaking out of their brain, but they've had it leaking out of their mouth, which is a good thing because then we get to take notes and pay attention.
Ew.
So to save the earth, we need to not destroy it. That is an independent phrase, independent clause. They're not phrases, they're clauses. Independent clause. And this seems difficult. This seems difficult is another independent clause. Independent plus independent. We have a compound sentence. He died, we dug, but nobody asked where Clint had been.
This is not a compound sentence.
It is not. Why is it not?
Because it has Clint had been. Where has Clint been? That has nothing to do with the compound sentence. I don't remember the name. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That was very good, Vortex. Thank you. So if we go through this, let's go through the verbs first. Died, dug, asked, had been. Those are all our verbs. Well, who died? He did. Who dug? We did. Who asked? Nobody. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares where Clint had been. Clint is who had been. Clint had been. All right, so he died. Then we have this cool thing called a semicolon. That'll be explained in a later video what exactly semicolons do and when you can use them. But we have a semicolon there, so we know that he died is an independent clause. We dug, but, comma, but. So we know that this is going to be independent. We dug is independent. Nobody asked is independent. Where Clint had been. Where Clint had been cannot stand by itself. It is a dependent clause. So this sentence here is I, D. It is not compound. If it was just I, it would be compound. But because we have this dependent clause, this is not a compound sentence. It is a compound complex sentence. We have more than one independent clause, and we have at least one dependent clause. Yes, Vortex.
Can I please write the equation to equal what the answer is?
You can write. He wants to touch my computer screen because, it's touch screen, and he doesn't have touch screen, so he thinks it's super cool. And good job, you know your letters.
Equals complex, whatever.
That's interesting. Equals compound complex. So C.
Thank you.
Complex sentences. Now these are the ones where they have at least one independent clause and at least one dependent clause.
And it's gonna
they have one independent clause and at least one dependent clause.
And it's gonna get kind of complex in here.
So while the house burned, he laughed and laughed and laughed.
Oof.
Don't say any personal phrases, but we do have burned as our verb. Laughed is another verb. Laughed is another verb. Laughed is another verb.
Wait, he's a noun.
He is a noun. He is also a subject.
And house is a noun.
House is a noun. House is also a subject. So while the house burned, comma. So that kind of gives us a hint. While the house burned cannot stand by itself. This is a dependent clause. He laughed and laughed and laughed, which can stand by itself. So we have an independent clause right there. We also have two conjunctions.
Conjunction. What's your function?
So what's also interesting about this sentence is you don't need to have, first of all, you don't need to have three laughs in there. You could just say he laughed. But let's say we want to emphasize that he was laughing while the house burned, which is disturbing enough by itself.
A psycho.
Yes, so we're emphasizing he's a psycho because he's laughing as the house is burning. So we say laughed and laughed and laughed. And because we have those extra conjunction thrown in, we have polysyndeton, which is when you have more conjunctions than you need, and that's usually used for emphasis, which is again what we're doing because he's a psycho and we want to emphasize that. Vortex refused to give Miss Dell the book, although Miss Dell was starving.
No.
Do we see any prepositional phrases? Vortex.
My brain's not working today, so I'm going to say no.
Yes, that's a good answer. Let's go with no. However, to give is an infinitive, so we're going to bracket that to get that out of there. Vortex refused. Refused is a verb. Miss Dell the book, although Miss Dell was starving.
Wait, isn't starving a verb?
Starving is a verb.
That's one crucial verb.
That is a very crucial verb. Vortex, who refused? Vortex did. Who was starving? Miss Dell was. Oof. All right. Vortex refused to give Miss Dell the book. Although, that's a key word there, so we can actually just break this off right here. We can know this is independent.
And this is dependent.
Because it cannot stand by itself, although Miss Dell was starving. All right, Ronald will have red hair until the kingdom comes. Do we have any prepositional phrases?
No.
No, we do not. Our verbs are.
How about well, my brain sometimes have brain farts, which
I think your brain is just dead. Will have red hair until the kingdom comes. All right, so those are our verbs. Who will have? Ronald will have. Who, what comes? Kingdom comes. Ronald will have red hair. That makes sense. Independent clause. Until the kingdom comes. Cannot stand by itself. Dependent clause. We have a complex sentence. Now notice again, di, id, id, they can be in any order for complex sentences. You could also have dii, that's a complex sentence. Sorry, you cannot have dii. Dii, soon again, sorry about that. As soon as you get to dii, you're into compound complex because you have more than one independent clause in a dependent, which makes this compound complex, which is our next type of sentence. We are going to go over compound complex sentences. So, while she laughed, he smiled, but I cried. Any prepositional phrases?
No.
Good answer. What about verbs?
Well, laughed, smiled, cried.
Yes. And subjects, who laughed?
I, she, he.
Okay, that one's feeling a little bit backwards today. While she laughed, dependent, cannot stand by itself, comma there to kind of show us, give us a hint that it's dependent. He smiled, independent, comma, conjunction, junction.
What's your function?
I cried, which is also independent.
Why did you cry?
Because he smiled and she laughed, and I fell down the stairs.
Oof.
Yes.
Ha.
It's actually more like, ah! But either one works. Although Bella loathed graveyards, she loved dead guys and she drank blood.
Vampire.
Eventually. Alright, so, any prepositional phrases? Nope.
No.
But loathed is our verb. Loved is our verb. And?
Drink.
Drank! Drank! Bella, who loathed? Bella did. Who loved? She did. Who drank? She did. These are, loathed, loved, drank. Wonderful verbs to have in the same sentence. Although Bella loathed graveyards, comma. Alright, so it gives us a hint. This is probably a dependent clause, which it is. It cannot stand by itself. She loved dead guys, comma, conjunction. Conjunction.
What's your function?
So this is an independent clause. She drank blood.
Independent.
So dependent, independent, independent, dependent, independent, independent. Mother always said I would be a loser until I grew a beard, yet she adored my father's baldness. Alright, let's look for any prepositional phrases. See any?
No.
I don't either. Let's look for verbs.
Said grew.
Would be.
Grew.
Adored. This is quite difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
And subject.
Mother. I. Loser. Wait.
Loser is not subject.
Oh.
Would be a loser.
I. Father. She.
So actually, this is a better way to do it than just guessing. Say, who said? Mother said. Who would be? I would be. Who grew? I. Who adored? She did. And we're out of verbs. We're out of subjects.
Miss Father?
So always in this case is acting as an adverb to said. Okay. I always would be a loser. So a loser is connecting to this verb here. It's working with that. Until I grew a beard. So until is a key word. So we can just cut that off right there. Mother always said. Now, this is a bit of a difficult sentence because there's an implied that. Oh, Mother always said that I would be a loser. So, even though that is not there, it's implied. So, Mother always said that is an independent clause. That I would be a loser is a dependent clause. Until I grew a beard, comma, conjunction. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Okay, there we go. So until I grew a beard, so this is a dependent.
And then...
Yet she adored my father's baldness.
I think that's independent.
Yep. So here we have independent, dependent, dependent, independent. Really weird combination, but you know what? It works. It's grammatically correct. No comments. I was waiting. I was like, Vortex, aren't you going to say something?
Oh, no.
Or now you're
about the next
something.
slide.
Oh, next slide. Okay.
Can I please have the honor of reading it?
Yes, you may.
Fortunately, not only my mother and I, also little boy Blue, walked to the store and we all got ice cream cones. Well, Bo Peep looked for sheep in the winter, apparently.
Prepositional phrases. Just for sheep, right? Sheep is our noun of the prep. Fortunately, not only my mother and I, but also little boy Blue walked. There we go. Oh, we also have to the store is a prepositional phrase. Okay, and we all got ice cream cones. So got is another verb, while Bo Peep looked. Who looked? Bo Peep did. Who got? We did. Who walked? My mother, I, little boy Blue. Now we have quite a few conjunctions. We have not only, which is partners with, but also. We also have and, which is joining my mother and I. We have another comma and, so that's going to tell us that we're going to have some independent, well, it's hinting that we may have some independent clauses. While little boy, okay. So fortunately, not only my mother and I, but also little boy Blue walked to the store. Whoa, all of that is one independent clause. Stand by itself. And we all got ice cream cones. Stand by itself. Independent clause. Well, Bo Peep looked for sheep. Dependent clause. Just a note, this fortunately here is working as an adverb, and it's modifying that entire phrase. Pretty cool, huh? And anything else you want to ask or go over, Vortex?
Well, I just have a comment for the end, just saving it.
Okay, so we're going to see that this slide is marked up pretty good, and yes, Vortex?
So now, just a little review for the other videos, if you have not seen them yet.
Oh my goodness.
Now, within this video, we have used 8 deadly English words.
And that will be all for this. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful night.
See ya.